The wind howled through the tall pines that surrounded my lakefront cabin, a place that had always been my escape from the chaos of city life, and, more importantly, from the claws of the HOA. My name's David Carter, former law enforcement, now living quietly in a mountain community that had slowly been swallowed by an overzealous WA led by none other than Karen Doyle, a woman whose hobby seemed to be finding reasons to invade other people's peace. I bought my cabin long before the WA ever existed. It was off-grid, private, and legally exempt from their jurisdiction. But that didn't stop Karen. She hated that I wouldn't join her little regime. No beautification fees, no inspection access. Just me, my land, and the law on my side. Then came the day she went too far. It started with a call from my neighbor, old Frank. His voice trembled through the static of my radio phone. "David, Karen's here. She's got bolt cutters. Says she's inspecting for code violations." I froze. The gate she was talking about wasn't some WA barrier, it was a federal training site entrance. My cabin had been leased out for tactical exercises by my former SWAT unit while I was away in DC for a week. Inside that cabin weren't fishing rods or beer coolers, it was an active, staged operation for a multi-agency training drill. And Karen was about to walk right into it. I told Frank to stay clear, then grabbed my truck keys. But I was hours away. All I could do was call my old team lead, Captain Lewis. The moment he heard unauthorized breach, he barked, "We'll handle it." Back at the cabin, Karen was doing what she did best, acting like she owned the place. She had two of her WA board members filming as she strutted up my gravel path, bolt cutters gleaming in the morning light. "David Carter has ignored multiple inspection notices," she announced to the camera. "We're enforcing compliance." With a satisfying snap, she cut the chain that marked my private property. The sound echoed across the still forest like a warning shot. She grinned, pushing open the door. She never expected what came next. The moment Karen stepped inside, she was met by the blinding beams of tactical flashlights. A voice thundered, "Drop your hands." "Step back." Screams erupted. Karen froze, clutching her WA clipboard like a shield. 4 armored SWAT officers emerged from the shadows, rifles low but ready, their faces hidden behind helmets and visors. "Who are you?" shouted one of them. I'm the president of the Lakeview WA," she stammered. "This property is subject to inspection." The lead officer's voice was calm but cutting. "This property is an active federal training site. You just trespassed on restricted grounds." Karen blinked, her face drained of color. The cameras kept rolling, one of her own board members still recording, terrified but too dumb to stop. "Sir, there must be some mistake," she squeaked. "I was just ensuring compliance." "Compliance," the officer said, stepping closer. "You broke a federal lock and entered a restricted building during an operation." The air was thick with tension. Outside, more vehicles rumbled down the dirt road, 2 black SUVs pulling up fast. Out stepped Captain Lewis, his presence commanding and cold. "Karen Doyle," he said, removing his shades. "You just committed a felony." Karen's jaw dropped. Felony? I didn't. This is outrageous. I have authority." Lewis shook his head slowly. "Not here, you don't." Within minutes, local deputies arrived, taking statements while the SWAT team stood watch. Karen's arrogance began to crumble as realization hit her. She had walked into a trap of her own making. Her own footage now served as evidence against her. By the time I arrived hours later, the scene was quiet. The cabin door was still open, yellow tape fluttering in the breeze. Karen sat on the porch steps, handcuffed, mascara streaking down her face. Her board members were whispering frantically, trying to explain to the deputies that it was just an inspection. When she saw me, her expression shifted from panic to fury. "You," she spat, "you set me up." I crossed my arms. "No, Karen, you set yourself up. That gate had federal warning signs all over it. You ignored them, like you ignore everyone's boundaries." She tried to stand, but the deputy beside her gently pressed her back down. "Ma'am, please stay seated. Do you know how many violations your cabin has?" she shouted. "The fence, the solar panels, none of it was approved." I almost laughed. "Approved by you, Karen? This land predates your WA by 20 years. You have zero authority here." Captain Lewis approached, holding up the camera one of her own people had used. "We have all of it on video. You cutting the lock, entering without consent, and interfering with federal operations. That's breaking and entering, trespassing, and obstruction." Her shoulders slumped. The woman who'd terrorized half the neighborhood with her rules and fines now sat in silence, the weight of her arrogance crushing her. As the sun dipped behind the ridge, the flashing lights from the patrol cars painted the cabin in red and blue. I leaned against my truck, watching as Karen was led away. One of the younger SWAT guys chuckled beside me. "You sure know how to pick your enemies, Carter." I smirked. "I didn't pick her, she picked me." In the following weeks, the entire neighborhood buzzed with the story. Karen had been charged with multiple offenses, including trespassing and destruction of federal property. The HOA board scrambled to distance themselves, claiming they had no knowledge of her actions. But the footage said otherwise. News outlets picked it up too. HOA president walks into SWAT training raid. The irony was almost poetic. The woman who prided herself on control had lost it all in one reckless act. When I returned to my cabin a month later, the gate had a new lock, sturdier, with a steel plate and a warning sign that read, "Private property, federal access only." As I unlocked the door and stepped inside, the cabin felt peaceful again. The scent of pine and ash, the hum of the generator, the stillness of the lake, it was mine once more. I poured myself a cup of coffee, sat by the window, and looked out at the fading daylight. It wasn't about revenge, it was about boundaries, something Karen had never understood. Sometimes, life doesn't need you to fight back. Sometimes, people walk straight into the consequences they've been begging for. And Karen Doyle, she learned the hard way that some doors are better left locked.